If you need new front brakes installed on your Jeep Grand Cherokee, then follow along in this step-by-step video. I'll get you this job complete in about an hour. Save yourself a lot of time and money by not taking it to a mechanic. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we need to do, we need to jack up the vehicle. I'm going to do the driver's side first. You're going to want to go ahead and block the wheels and then put a jack stand underneath just for added security. And then to take off the lug nuts, we need a 19mm socket. I'll go ahead and get them all loosened up with this, and then I'll just spin them off with an impact. All the lug nuts loose, I'm just going to go ahead and spin them off. That's off, we can go ahead and remove the tire. Need to go ahead and remove the caliper bolts. As you can see, I have the 14mm socket on that one there at the top. And if you come down here, you'll be able to see that bottom one. So those are the two bolts that we're going to remove. With the two caliper bolts removed, we can go ahead and move the caliper out of the way. Here's a tip for you. You don't want this caliper just hanging off the car. You don't want it resting on something because it can fall off. So I zip tie it through this hole right here, up to here. 2 zip ties holding it out of my way, no problem. Now we can go ahead and continue removing the brake pads. Go ahead and remove that caliper support bracket, and there's 2 bolts on the back side. So there is the bottom bolt we need to remove. And you come up here, you'll see the top one. And that's a 13/16 socket. So we'll go ahead and take those 2 bolts out. And then that caliper support bracket will come off. Now that's everything we need to remove. Now we can go ahead and pull off the rotor. Here's our brand new rotor. But as you can tell, it's got a coat of oil on it. So you're going to want to go ahead and use brake cleaner and clean off this rotor really well. And then we'll go ahead and put it on the vehicle. Now that the rotor is all nice and clean on both sides, I've got it installed on the vehicle. Now we need to go ahead and put the new mounting hardware onto the caliper bracket. Put a little grease in there and then install the caliper bracket. New hardware installed onto the caliper support bracket. And we got brake grease all up inside there, so that the pads can slide back and forth. And all we need to do is install that bracket. Got the support bracket reinstalled. You can see right there are the 2 bolts all tightened up. And now we need to squeeze the caliper in because we're putting on newer, thicker pads. We need to squeeze that caliper piston all the way in, and we'll do that with a C-clamp. Old brake pads right here, I've got a large C-clamp and I'm just squeezing in the pistons. And you may have to move this back and forth to get both of these squeezed all the way in. At this point, I have the pistons pushed all the way in. I've got brake grease around the pistons and I've got it around this side of the caliper. So now we can go ahead and slide our brake pads in. I'm just taking a little bit off of each end, maybe only about 30 thousandths of an inch. And that's just going to allow the pad to slide a little better and make it easier to install. An up close view. Cut those zip ties and slide the caliper over the brake pads. And with the brake grease already in place, this should slide right down over the brake pads. Now the brakes are completely assembled, we can go ahead and reinstall the wheel. Lug nuts on there by hand. I'm just going to spin them in a little bit with this small impact, and then we're going to torque them to 100 foot-pounds. Now we've got the wheel torqued in place, we can go ahead and remove the jack stand and lower the vehicle all the way down. A tip for you, I like to take it for a test drive now. because I didn't hear any unusual noises before. So if I take it for a test drive and I hear something weird, some unusual noise, I know it is going to be the driver's side left, because that's the only one I've worked on. If you go ahead and do the other side, or if you do all four and you have some unusual noise, you won't be able to find out the problem very quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and take it for a test drive, and if everything sounds and feels okay, we'll go ahead and do the passenger side. I came back from the test drive, I didn't hear any unusual noises. The brakes felt quite a bit better, so I'm confident that that driver's side is fine. So now we'll go ahead and do the passenger side. And I've saved us a little bit of time. I've already taken the wheel off, and this is going to be basically the same thing. We're going to go ahead and remove the caliper next, zip tie it up out of the way. We've got the caliper off, zip tied up out of the way. Go ahead and pop the brake pads off, and now we'll go ahead and remove the caliper support bracket. The caliper support bracket off, we can go ahead and remove the rotor. Rotor is all put in place. I've got the grease on there, so now we can go ahead and install the pads. Now I've got my brake pads back in place. Now we're going to have to spin this around, put the old pad in there, and close up the caliper pistons. The caliper on, I've got the caliper bolts all tightened up. We can go ahead and throw the wheel on. Wheel completely on, lug nuts torqued up to 100 foot-pounds. Got the jack stand out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and lower it down. And this job's complete. Congratulate yourself on doing this all on your own. You didn't have to take it to a mechanic. You didn't have to drop it off anywhere. You did it right home at your own garage. Step-by-step process is not too bad. It's pretty easy. I'll put links in the description below on everything I use to buy it off Amazon. Have that stuff show up at your doorstep in 1 to 2 days. You don't even have to go to a store. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.